video for you with new stories from Ethiopia, Eritrea and Sudan. Firstly, Eritrea-Sudan border. Reportedly, Eritrea has closed its border with Sudan. Eritrea-Sudan border is close to Eritrea-Ethiopia and Sudan-Ethiopia border at a crucial time when tensions on Ethiopia-Sudan border are all-time high. Eritrea has closed its border with Sudan. Is this closure linked to Ethiopia-Sudan border conflict, or is it linked to internal Sudanese security situation? A second news story is from Shewa Robit town of Amhara region. Reportedly, some protesters have been killed. Security forces opened fire at protesters in Shewa Robit town of Amhara region. Third news story is about Oromo Liberation Army. Ethiopian government of PM Abiy last week announced the start of a new operation against those elements involved in Valaga massacre. Government blamed the massacre on Oromo Liberation Army. A new operation was launched, and today Ethiopian Communication Ministry shared some claims about operation against OLA in West Valaga and in eastern areas where reportedly, according to government statement, dozens of OLA fighters have been killed. Fourthly, Gata Choreda, Tigray presidential spokesperson, today held a press briefing, weekly press briefing it seems, and he talked about talks, dialogue with Ethiopian federal government. He talked about the areas of Tigray which are under Eritrean control. He mentioned Eritrea-Amhara alliance. We'll have a detailed look at what he said. And lastly, an ICRC convoy, International Committee of Red Cross convoy, just a few hours ago arrived in Mekelle Tigray's capital. Firstly, viewers, Eritrea-Sudan border. Reportedly, Eritrea has closed its border with Sudan. Is this closure linked to Ethiopia-Sudan border conflict, or is it linked to internal security situation in Sudan? We know that on Ethiopia-Sudan border, tensions are running high because last week Sudan accused Ethiopia that Ethiopian military executed 7 Sudanese soldiers. Ethiopian military denied the allegations, but it confirmed that Sudanese soldiers had been killed in fighting with a militia, Amhara Fano militia. Then Sudanese forces launched a counter operation. Reportedly, Sudanese military conducted artillery strikes on some Ethiopian army positions on Sudan-Ethiopia border. Is this border closure linked to this escalation between Ethiopia and Sudan? That this fighting could spread into Eritrea, that is why Eritrea has closed its border. Or is it linked to internal Sudanese security situation? We know that in Sudan yesterday, on Thursday, massive demonstrations were held. And after that, during the demonstrations, security forces opened fire at protesters, and around 10 protesters were killed. And the protests are still ongoing. Today, in Khartoum, on Friday in Khartoum, Sudanese protesters staged a sit-in, and security forces are trying to disperse the sit-in, but sit-in is still continuing reportedly. And apart from Khartoum, in other parts of Sudan, in eastern Sudan as well, massive demonstrations were reported. Eastern Sudan shares border with Eritrea. So, is this border closure linked to internal security situation in Sudan? Eritrea has been trying to mediate in Sudan. Eritrean Foreign Minister, advisor to President Isaias Afwerki, have traveled to Sudan several times in recent months, and they have held meetings with Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, Sudanese army chief, and General Hamati, vice chairman of Sudanese Sovereignty Council. Eritrea has been trying to mediate in Sudan, but situation is worsening. Security situation in Sudan is worsening. Since yesterday, we have been seeing that after the killing of protesters, new demonstrations have started. So that is why perhaps Eritrea does not want unrest in neighboring countries to creep into Eritrea. That is why it has closed its border with Sudan reportedly. No official announcement from Eritrea, but reportedly it has closed its border with Sudan. Secondly, viewers, second news story is from Shewa Robit town of Amhara region. The town is situated in North Shoa zone of Amhara region. In previous video, I reported about protests in Shewa Robit. 2 days ago, I shared a clip as well from Shewa Robit that students, locals, they took to the streets in Shewa Robit against Valaga massacre, which happened a few days ago, in which innocent civilians were killed, mostly Amhara civilians. And after that, we have seen massive demonstrations across Amhara region and Shewa Robit as well. People protested. After demonstrations in Shewa Robit, security forces arrested some organizers of the demonstrations, but local students, they reached the police station where organizers were being kept, and they offered their arrest as well. Reportedly in the evening there was again demonstration in Shewa Robit city. There was confrontation between security officials and Shewa Robit town residents. Security officials opened fire. 2 casualties are being confirmed, that at least 2 persons have died in this use of force by security officials. In the Amhara region, we are seeing, despite government's efforts to control law and order situation, things are not improving. Student protests are gaining momentum. Student protests are mostly inside universities, but now in the cities as well, people are protesting. In the previous video, I shared a clip from Majate. Majate is also in North Shore zone of Amhara region. In Majate, people protested as well today. In Shewa Robit, protests going on for 2 days almost. And today, in the use of force, security forces reportedly, allegedly killed 2 protesters. In coming videos, we'll try to update you about what's happening in Shewa Robit. Overall, it's being said that situation is far from being peaceful in Shewa Robit town of Amhara region. Thirdly, viewers, today Ethiopian federal government shared first claims about operation against OLA. Operation against OLA was launched around 1.5 months ago, but the operation could not deliver. It could not produce any results. Then Valaga massacre was committed. Government blamed OLA for this massacre, and Ethiopian PM Abiy announced the launch of a new operation against those involved in Valaga massacre, and it seemed that new operation has started. And OLA is at the receiving end. Today, Ethiopian Federal Communication Ministry shared details about operation in 2 zones of Oromo region against Shine. They call OLA Shine. Ethiopian Communication Ministry says that 45 OLA members have been killed in an operation. The operation was conducted at a school which was being used as a camp by OLA members. The school is situated in West Valaga zone. Gimbi massacre, Tole massacre was also committed in West Valaga. This operation against OLA was carried out in West Valaga zone, Bagi, Voreda and Tenze Kabale. Here, government says that 45 OLA members have been killed, 2 have been arrested, and dozens of guns and other weapons were recovered by security forces in West Valaga. In East Valaga as well, according to Ethiopian government forces, Ethiopian Federal Communication Ministry, an operation was launched and Oromo Liberation Army fighters retreated from their positions in East Valaga. No statement from Oromo Liberation Army so far, though a few hours ago OLA spokesperson said that operations against OLA were not something new. Operations have been happening for years, and OLA is still united, it's still strong. Let's see, will OLA respond to this official statement of Ethiopian federal government that 45 of its members have been killed? That remains to be seen. Generally, Ethiopian Federal Communication Ministry does not share any information about operation against OLA. It seems that government is taking this operation seriously because there is pressure upon government as well. In previous video, we shared a clip showing an international NGO representative speaking at UN Human Rights Council about killings of Amhara ethnic group members in Ethiopia. Amhara diaspora community is trying to internationalize the issue of Amhara ethnic group killings in Ethiopia. So that is why perhaps Ethiopian government is taking this issue seriously now, because this issue can have consequences, international consequences could be seen if the issue is not resolved. Perhaps that is why operation against OLA is being reported by government's communication ministry. Fourthly, viewers, Geta Choreda, Tigray presidential spokesperson, held weekly press briefing today and he spoke about several important points. Firstly, he said communication, banking are not up for talks. Tigray cannot talk if it's under a siege, under a blockade. That is why government must restore Ethiopian regime, he calls it. Ethiopian government must restore basic services like banking, like telecommunication service in Tigray. So he seems to be saying there cannot be any talks with Ethiopian federal government if there is no resumption of electricity, resumption of banking service or telecommunication service. Before the start of talks, there should be restoration of these basic services. Point number 1. Second point, he says that Tigray has nothing to do with what happened on Ethiopia-Sudan border. False propaganda is being shared by Ethiopian government that Tigray fighters and Sudan military jointly entered Ethiopian territory and after that clashes erupted. He said there were no Tigray fighters involved in escalation on Ethiopia-Sudan border. Thirdly, once again, he reiterated Tigray government's position that Eritrea will not peacefully withdraw from Tigray lands. Tigray has been saying that it will use all means available to push invading forces out of Tigray. And it has been saying that withdrawal of these forces is not going to be easy. So once again, Getachew reiterated Tigray government's position that Eritrea will not withdraw from parts of Tigray peacefully. Tigray will have to launch a military operation. He implied, it seems, And lastly said that the priorities of Tigray government are to protect the interests of the people of Tigray, but Ethiopian federal government's policy about talks is not clear. Ethiopian government has announced the names of the members of a committee which will hold talks with Tigray government. Tigray has not responded so far. Tigray should form a committee. Tigray should make the names public. Then Tigray can say that this committee is ready for talks with you, but the venue is going to be Nairobi. What do you say? But so far, no announcement of negotiation team by Tigray government. Lastly, viewers, International Committee of Red Cross today shared a clip from Tigray. A new convoy of the Red Cross entered Mekelle today. The convoy was carrying teff seeds, household items, and medical supplies. ICRC has sent several convoys, several humanitarian flights to Tigray in recent days. Watch this clip shared by ICRC about arrival of an aid convoy in Mekelle, Tigray's capital. Thanks for watching.